Hey friends, good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to PowerNAP Live. I am, of course, Dr. Erin Wilson, and today we're going to be diving into something mind-blowing, okay? What if the smartest people in history, like the Newtons, the Teslas, the O'Keeffes, they all shared one thing that had nothing to do with their their IQ. Okay. What if their true secret wasn't intelligence, but actually strategic rest? That's what we're going to talk about today. So stick with me for the next few minutes because I'm about to show you the world's greatest breakthroughs were not born from hustle, but from stillness. Right after this. Good morning. I see folks already in the comments. Hi, so good to see you. Let me know. That's right. I saw somebody say, exactamente, right? So, yes. So, let's start with this, right? This is the question. Is strategic rest the secret of geniuses? And I think it is, right? This episode, again, yes, last week's episode was inspired by my dad. This one was too. He gave me something to think about this week. And so the show is all about that. So let's start with this, right? Genius is not about IQ. It's about RQ, a rest quotient, right? So as we think about it, right, I want you to think about Isaac Newton. He was actually stuck at home during the plague. He wasn't out grinding in the lab. It was just thinking. He was just literally thinking. And out of that stillness came gravity, came what we know about motion, and also calculus. And he's not alone, okay? Poets, scientists, philosophers that we see in history books, right? Inventors across centuries and seasons have all used retreat as a part of their strategy. I want you to tell me a little bit, right, in the chat if you maybe if you're trying to come up with an idea, like what is something that you do in order to get some stillness? Maybe your best ideas come when you take a walk, right? Maybe it's when you're in the shower or right before bed. Someone said that everything he did, exactly, that we couldn't do all of the things that we do really without that calculus. And a lot of people attribute that to genius. And I do think that you have to be incredibly smart, right? But also, there has to be moments of stillness for that intelligence to be able to play out. Okay, so let's run through a few examples of some folks who have harnessed the power of strategic rest, right? Let's think about Isaac Newton. Okay, so quarantine, again, like we talked about, led him to gravity, right? To being able to think about gravity, but not just him. Emily Dixon, someone who we think about as someone who she was kind of considered, I guess, kind of a recluse, right? But still, she was able from that stillness to create almost 2,000 poems, right? Let's think about Tesla, okay? This person was in isolation, but that provided space for innovation. Even folks in the science industry, right? Some of the best science that we have, scientific exile, right? Provided some people, I can't think of his name right now, but the scientist that literally came up with MRA, The mRNA vaccine. This person was in like scientific exile. And that's exactly how that came to be, right? So rest isn't a break from greatness, as we tend to think in our society, right? If you're resting, you're not being productive. And that's absolutely just not the case. It is what did Candy from Real Housewives, she said, the lies, right? Absolutely. It is just not the case. Stillness or rest, and specifically strategic rest, is actually the birthplace of greatness. So I hope that that kind of hit home for you, right? As you think about the poet, maybe that hit home for you. As you think about the scientists, the people who are innovating things, right? So what exactly, right, made their rest so powerful? I want to talk a little bit about that today. What made their rest so powerful? Let's unpack that a little bit, okay? So the first thing, and specifically today, I want to hit on their 7 secrets. Okay. There's 7 secrets to genius rest. And we've got to know those as we are leaders that are practicing strategic rest. The first one is having relentless curiosity. Okay. Relentless curiosity. Curiosity is kind of like, I don't know, I don't really drink a lot of caffeine, but I know tons of people who love coffee, right? And coffee is good to folks because they get hit with that caffeine rush every time they do it. Well, I want you to think about how coffee feels for you to drink it when we think about that relentless curiosity, okay? Relentless curiosity is kind of like caffeine for the mind, but rest is what makes it digest. Okay. Even though you're curious, you've got to have space and time for that caffeine to kick in, right? And that's exactly how relentless curiosity helps people be rested and helps geniuses specifically harness the way that they rest. Geniuses never stop asking questions, they just stop rushing the answers that they're looking for. So it's important for us to always practice that relentless curiosity. The second thing is a pattern recognition, right? When you rest, your brain literally gets the opportunity to start connecting the dots. Oftentimes, we are always trying to do things, so we don't get the opportunity to allow our mind to just explore. Are you too busy to explore right now? Oftentimes we find that that's the case. Think about kids, right? They're the time when I remember being a kid. Now, right now, I don't like to go outdoors, right? But as a kid, that probably surprises people. But my parents would let me spend quite a bit of time outdoors, right? And as a kid, I was never bored outdoors because there were so many things to explore. I would look at grass. I would look at flowers that were near our house. I would look at the dog that lived next door and wonder things about him, right? So it's incredibly important for us to understand that when we take a break, when we rest strategically, it allows for us to start recognizing patterns, and our greatest breakthroughs can come exactly from that. The third thing is focused obsession. Okay. And lots of people don't like to use the word obsession, but it's important when we start to think about those secrets that geniuses have, right? That focus obsession is a part of that. Rest doesn't dull your drive. Okay. It really helps you to be able to sharpen your aim. Remember, we started this talking about Newton a little bit, right? And how he didn't just have 10 projects floating around him all the time. You start to see that geniuses really start to hone in on one problem and then spend a lot of time thinking just about that specific thing. In our life, we are engulfed with so many different pieces, right? It's hard, even though we created the NAP framework, right? If you haven't read my book, Strategic Rest and Leadership, it's important for us to be able to understand how to prioritize. But oftentimes, geniuses prioritize the specific thing that they're focusing on at that time and become obsessed with it. right? Not in a negative way, but really focused on cracking this specific thing. And that's where that innovation comes from. The fourth thing. So at this point, right, we're taught, we said relentless curiosity, having pattern recognition, and then of course that focus obsession, moving some of the other things out of the way so you can crack this one case, right? But that moves us to mental models and visualization. Have you ever had someone that you know around you who is like, I can see it. I can literally see it. I know I'm going to be this because I can see it, right? Well, here's the thing, they're not wrong. A rested mind can actually see the big picture while a tired mind just kind of stares at the pixels, right? So it's important for us, especially as we think about harnessing the secret of geniuses, to understand the value of being able to visualize things and knowing that our rested selves, whether it's actually sleeping, there are so many things that I have seen, right, about my next business moves or how to solve a problem that I've literally seen it in my dreams, right? But that requires me to be resting in order for me to do it. Or sometimes just sitting, right, quietly allows me to literally visualize my next power move. The next thing is meta thinking. I feel like we hear meta being thrown around a whole lot. But if you think about meta thinking as a strategy that geniuses use, it's all about how rest allows for us to watch our own mind work. It's like hitting replay on your own brilliance, right? So meta thinking is all about watching what your mind, what the work is that you're doing in your mind, okay? And that's important. You don't just want to do things and not review them, right? And oftentimes being able to rest allows you, sometimes not in the best way. I have some people who, of course, go into doom spirals. We don't want you to do that. I want you to be thinking about what you did. It literally kind of like replays in your mind so that you can think about maybe moments that you didn't miss, maybe things that you were actually going to say. But I really want you to harness it for the things that help you look for clues on how to solve the mysteries that you're looking to solve. Right? It's all about, yes, someone in the comments said it's all about running the tape back. Some of our best some of our best sports players. Matter of fact, I would say, now listen, I'm not out here pretending to know anything about sports. But what I do know is that oftentimes coaches have their games taped. They literally go back and watch every move of the players as they run. What is it called that they run? Plays. With the sports reference. Okay. I see you, Doc. They literally look at the plays that they make. They run back to watch where feet, literally where people's feet are placed. How did they rush this? And when they do that, those genius coaches are able to win. It's all about that meta thinking. Okay. So we're finally to 6. All right. So you also have to have, and this is going to take some boldness. All right. I don't need you to be brave, but I do need you to be bold. Okay. In order to do this, and in order to harness the secrets of geniuses, the sixth thing I want you to focus on is the courage to be misunderstood. The courage to be misunderstood. Again, that doesn't necessarily require bravery. It feels like it does, but oftentimes we are so afraid to be misunderstood. Think about, imagine holding yourself up in rooms for weeks and days. People don't understand that or get that. And I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just saying it has been a secret of some of our greatest geniuses. Now, by no means am I saying that that's necessarily what you need to do, but sometimes people won't understand that you need rest. But we have to understand that rested people, they don't just chase applause, they really seek to chase alignment. Is this aligned with who I want to be, with what I want to do, and how I can use my time and talents to make the world a better place? Asking yourself about how this aligns with you. And for me, I, of course, ask the Lord, right? Is this aligned in your plan for me? But no matter how you do it, it's so important as we think about how that's a secret to genius to understand, is it in alignment with who I am, who I choose or want to be, right? It's important for us to ask ourselves that question as we seek to practice strategic rest, just like geniuses. Okay. And the final thing is having a purpose driven vision. Have you ever met someone that has a purpose driven vision? They're on fire. They know it. They know the moves that they're going to make because it's purpose driven. I'm literally supposed to be doing this. So I do the things that make sense to my purpose, to my calling, to who I'm meant to be, to who I'm supposed to impact, right? And to who I'm supposed to lead. So it's so important for us to also see that purpose driven vision is incredibly important and one of the secrets that geniuses harness. When your rest is rooted in purpose, your comeback carries power. That's the thing. When it's rooted, your comeback literally carries so much power. And that's what we want, right? That is what we see of the people that we think of as geniuses in our lifetime and lifetimes before us, are that literally what they did had so much power. So there's modern proof. Remember, I started this talking about people, of course, that we see in history books, that we see other places, right? But as we think about some of the modern ways, the modern proof that people have used rest as literally their secret to be geniuses, I think about Jack Dorsey, right? He goes on silent meditation retreats and then comes back with that kind of $1 million clarity and says that that is something that's important, because even in our tech driven world, silence is still the new strategy. And I believe that. That's why I co-wrote Strategic Rest in Leadership, because I truly believe that, especially in the world that we're in, especially in the world that we're moving into, right? Different phases of your leadership journey or just in your life, that no matter where you are in that rest and silence is one of the greatest strategies that you can use in order to know your next steps, in order to be creative, in order to have clarity, and in order to show up wherever you are, if you decide to show up as the best version of yourself, right? So if people that we think of as the geniuses of our time, right? And the geniuses of yesteryear, if those folks can create from calm, then what could you do with just 30 minutes of rest? Are you the next genius out there that the idea just hasn't come to because you decided not to rest? That's the question I wanted you to ask yourself. As we're all out here trying to think about ways to have streams of income, to take care of families, to do all of these different things, my question to you is, could silence literally be the strategy that you haven't used in order to figure out what your next move is? What would it look like to step back, right? That's a modern genius move. The step back. I'm gonna call that the step back. All right. Is the modern genius move is the step back. When y'all hear that other places, y'all better tell them that was Dr. Erin that said that first, okay? Because the modern genius move, we talked about the secret of geniuses, but I want you to think about how stepping back, looking at it, looking at the situation, right? That meta thinking, being not worried about what other people are saying about you, because sometimes the best business ideas have been misunderstood, right? But have still led people to be able to change their life drastically because once it popped off, right? So I want you, of course, because we can't ever leave this without me challenging you, right? That's what we're here for. I'm holding you accountable in our community around strategic rest, right? So here's the thing, I want you to not just think like a genius that you are, I want you to start resting like one, okay? Don't just be the genius. I need you to rest like one. That's the secret here. All right. So here is your power nap challenge for the week. All right. I want you to block 30 minutes this week. And I know that's wild. I know 30 minutes is sometimes hard to come by, but we're here practicing the secrets of geniuses. Okay. So we got to do what we got to do. So I want you to block 30 minutes. No phone, no agenda, okay? 30 minutes, no noise, but I want you to block 30 minutes, okay? I also want you to find some time to either think about, or if you're someone who journals, I want you to think about a question, okay? What emerges when I stop trying to force progress? What emerges when I stop trying to force progress is what I want you to think about this week. Am I literally pouring water on the fire of my genius by not taking the time to use what we have seen as the secret of geniuses, which is rest, which is literally rest, which is moving themselves from situations in order to be able to focus on the movements, the next movement that they need to make. But in order to know what the move is that you need to make, you've got to be still in the move you're in. You've got to. You got to take your hand off the piece for just a second so you can look at the whole board. That's a word right there. You got to take your hand off the piece in order to look at the whole board, and that will give you peace. Okay, y'all know I be cracking myself up. All right. But whatever the case is, we've got to do that. So I want you to think about that. What emerges, right, when I stop trying to force progress? And I want you to take that 30 minutes this week, no phone, no agenda, no noise, and just think. Just think. Just be. Just sit in stillness and see what comes to you. Okay. As we talked about today, every genius has something in common, right? They have that one thing in common, and that's that they trusted the pause. They turned to pause as a part of their power. And I want you to be able to do that too. And that's why I unlocked the secret of geniuses, right? Today on today's show. So, anyway, it has been fantastic to be here with you guys. I cannot wait to see you next. Oh, that's not true. Next Sunday, there is no show. I will be enjoying my strategic rest like the genius that I am somewhere on somebody's beach. Okay. But I will be back here with you, not next Sunday, but the Sunday after, of course, to tell you a little bit about my beach vacay, but also for something else that's going to help you capture strategic rest in the best way. Okay. So until then, I'll see you then. But until then, make sure that you make good decisions. And you know what, folks? I want you to rest like you mean it. All right. See you next time. Make sure to comment if you're watching the replay. Let me know in the comments that you're doing that. Share this with somebody that you know needs to know what geniuses do. And I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.